welcome to ID Creatures. So today we are going to talk about 3-point perspective. And if you saw the previous two tutorials about 1 and 2-point perspective, you can see that it's the same example here. The only difference right now from the other two is that you have a third point. You know, you have 1, 2, 3. You see 1, 2, 3. You can have it at the bottom or you can have it at the top. Like I was saying, in 2-point perspective, it depends on what you're drawing. What effect you want to, just give people of what this looks like, okay? So, what we're going to do is we're going to start by drawing a basic cube, okay? And what I'm going to do is, like every other time, I'm going to draw a horizontal line, and this line is the horizon line, just to be really clear. Oh, oops, I made a mistake. Horizon line, there we go. So we have vanishing point number 1, vanishing point number 2, I'm just going to write VP because I assume you're familiar with the term, and vanishing point number 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by drawing a vertical line, which is the way I most of the times start. But this time it's different because it's not, the reason for this being vertical is not because it's a vertical line, it's because it's right over vanishing point number 3. Okay, so if we draw another line here, it's not going to be vertical, it's going to be just going in this direction. So we're going to just draw it now. Okay, and then another one going on this direction. Okay, so I think this is going to be a problem because I drew it right to vanishing point number 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw another one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one to vanishing point number 2, and then this right here to vanishing point number 2. So here we have one of the surfaces that make up the cube. You're going to realize how extreme this perspective is, because in 3-point perspective it's even more radical when you have it inside the paper. So next I'm going to, after this little sketch here, I'm going to do the same thing I did with 2-point perspective, which is to do this with the vanishing points outside the paper. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm taking each point where lines meet to both vanishing points. Okay, so let's see, this right here, this point is going to vanishing point number 3, vanishing point number 2, and vanishing point number 1. So all the corners here should go to each one of the vanishing points. So what's important to realize is that you have no horizontal lines, no horizontal and no vertical. Okay, this is really, really important to remember. You only have lines going to 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so vanishing point number 1, 2, 3. Again, it doesn't have to be with that specific order. It's just, that's the way I learned it, so that's the way I do it. So I'm gonna take this and make the edge dark. You can see that there are no horizontal or vertical lines. I said that already, but it's really important to point it out. So again, you have here your first 3-point perspective cube, which, for me, it's the type of perspective that I like to use more, but not as extreme as this one. I'm gonna make another cube where you will be able to see what I mean. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna draw a vertical line here, and I'm gonna do one line over there, one line going over there, one line here. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is actually having my lines here go down but not meet right here at the bottom of the paper. I'm assuming that if I were to draw them like going really, really far like down, they would meet the same as I did in the 2-point perspective. And this right here, this cube is the way I guess it represents, or it's an example of how I like to draw my perspectives when I do a sketch. This is the I guess the way I like to do them, to do the cubes, to draw cubes. So I'm gonna make this dark and explain why. I think this cube right here, I don't know, I just think it's pretty. But, I mean, not specifically this cube, but in general, this type of perspective sketching. I'm just making some lines here so you realize where the perspectives are going. Okay, so the lines that are going in that direction are going to meet eventually in that direction. The lines that are going in that direction are going to meet, you know, eventually there, and the ones that are going down are also going to meet eventually. So if you were to ask me which perspective to use, I would say use 3-point perspective, but not too extreme. Okay, just if you're drawing vertical lines, make them all a little bit tilted to the sides so they can meet eventually going down. Okay, so this is 3-point perspective, but what we're gonna do now is we're gonna make one of these examples that I showed you at the beginning, and I think we're gonna do this one right now. So I'm gonna take another piece of paper, and I am going to draw the horizon line right there. Okay, and I am going to, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm gonna do one line right here, one line right there, and one line right here. And the bigger you sketch, the harder it gets to make all the lines go where you want them to go. So just think about that when you're working. So I'm going to do another line here, and another line right there, and another line going over there, and okay. So I just told you that the bigger you sketch, the sometimes harder it gets, but the thing that's always, I mean, that's also correct is that first you should start sketching really big, because you can see your mistakes, and if you draw it really, really small, I mean, like let's say right here, you don't really see what's happening there, so it's really easy to get away with, you know, cheating and not doing the perspective the way it's supposed to be. But when you sketch it really big, or in, you know, even bigger size of papers, then you realize what your mistakes are, and when you have to draw like thumbnail sketches, then they look good even though they're small, because you have all the proportions and everything correct. Okay, so even though it's a little harder sometimes to draw on a bigger scale, you should try and do that if you're just, you know, starting out. So I have a cube again, but this time I'm gonna start, you know, just making the divisions that are necessary to make the object. So I'm gonna do the same thing I always do and explain how I'm starting. This cube would be, you know, this square right here, and what I just did is the top right there, just to, you know, have a clear idea of what I'm doing. This line is going down there, and this line is going down there, okay? So what I'm going to do is this meeting point right here is going to vanishing point number 2, number 3, so I'm missing number 1. So I have to bring this vanishing point over there, and then this one, take it over there, and this one over here, okay? So I'm making the depth of the leg there, or the column, okay? There we go. So we have one of the columns here. We have another one, so we need to make the third one that's going on that in that direction. So vanishing point number 2, vanishing point number 1, and okay, so we need to make the depth of this thing. Going to vanishing point number 1, number 3, and number 3. Okay, so the lines are done. We're gonna see right here it's kind of like a mess, so this is why it's really helpful to come back in and just clean it up. And an alternative for this, instead of, if you don't like the way the Sharpie looks, you should just take another piece of paper and trace over your own sketch, and that way you have you know, a basic just overall I guess proportion sketch, and then you can have a final sketch traced over that one, and that way if you make a mistake you won't have to start from scratch. Okay, you have another sketch, like let's say right now I take this one and just trace over the final lines, and that way if I make a mistake here it doesn't matter, because I could just bring another piece of paper and trace it again. So sometimes I do that when it's, you know, something for school or something that I have to turn in and it has to look really, really clean. Then I don't do this that I'm doing right now. I just trace over my own sketch. That way it looks a lot cleaner. So I'm just making this edges a little bit darker so you can see what's happening. And I don't think it's totally necessary in this sketch, but I'm also gonna do it. I'm gonna just have some little shading details here to show where the surfaces are. Okay. Okay, so let's see. I hope you have everything really clear and that you understood what perspective is. So remember, you always have 1, 2, 3 lines going in different directions depending on what perspective you're using, but everywhere you have, you know, a point where lines meet, you always have 3 of them, okay? So 1, 2, and 3, okay? Never 2, never 1, always 3. So let's jump to the next thing.